Safety cop is running, yeah.
All right. Hold has
They're
been
now
lifted.
being recorded, so any four-letter words you say will now be etched in the memory.
Cool.
I'm very much looking forward, even though it might be a bit of a damp squib because of the counter-programming we're going to be encountering. I am looking forward to the fundraiser next week.
Yeah, and we do have the video for that we should play during the show.
Yes.
Yes.
Cool.
Should be fun.
It'd be a
It'll be
blast.
in the notes.
I would say I
Should
bought
be
the steering wheel
hilarious.
specifically for the purpose, but I've wanted one for a while, so it's just an excuse.
I'm gonna send a reminder to my Discord server real quick that I'm here.
Awesome.
There you go.
Make sure I don't have minimal background processes running, so I don't have any interruptions.
Having to have Ethernet for this has meant that I've finally had the best internet connection to my PC that I've ever had. So that has been one huge benefit of doing this, because I never would have.
I've always been obsessed with having wired connections. When I lived in England, when they were renovating the house that I was going to live in, because it was my mum and dad's old rental property. It was actually our family home from years ago, which we kept when we moved. And I had them run cable track from the bottom floor up 2 stories into the loft where my bedroom was going to be, just so I could run Ethernet cable, because screw Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I had never had a wired connection before, believe it or not. So this is a great change for me.
But
You are
it's
very
absolutely
welcome for us forcing that upon you.
Because I work from home, it's a technical requirement. I'm not allowed to do it any other way, because you don't want a connection issue in the middle of a fraught call with a sick person. So. Let's take advantage of all
Looks like
of
we're about
the megabits.
two minutes out. Are we going to kick off the TikTok or? Did we go early on TikTok?
No, we go right at the 2 seconds before.
I'm so used to fighting with TikTok Studio and having the wait. Hold on, we have to click a thing. No, do this thing. No, we have to click that.
Oh no, we are working with TikTok to the extent that their screwed up system lets us. So
That's kind of what I thought.
I know that well.
Welcome to TikTok Stupido.
Ugh,
Heated team.
awful.
Check it.
Yeah, Tim, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. We are almost 1 minute to live. Let's see. We are officially 1 minute to live. So I'm going to go ahead and start my political policy speech here. All right. Please do not name any living U.S. politician or current U.S. political party. Don't mention any U.S. elections. Don't make calls to or encourage actions. Speak to the facts and how they do or do not align with our values, and attack ideas, not people or parties. And with that being said, we are officially 1 minute to live. So just a few minutes or a moment, your screen is going to go blank just like that. Don't worry, you haven't been disconnected. We're just getting ready to start the broadcast. Be aware that during the intro, the outro, and any other time after that, when you aren't on screen, that your microphone is still live. There will be a brief moment of silence at the end of the outro, and that is by design. Ben, just a reminder that when we start the broadcast, we will count down from 5, but we will be silent on 2 and 1. This is so you can know when to expect the show to start, but wait until you see yourself on camera to start your opening paragraph. With all that being said, thank you everyone for being here, and let's have a great show. Audio is clear for live. All right, we're going to be starting in 5, 4, 3.
It's easy to view nature's complexity as magic or spiritual when you don't think about all of the moving pieces. For example, A faith healer fixing a broken bone may sound possible if you don't consider the step-by-step process of bone healing, from the calcium carried by the bloodstream or the push and pull mechanisms of bone growth and remodeling that can take several months. If we analyze what would be required for these miracles to succeed, these stories aren't just improbable, but virtually impossible. If you think that faith healing is real, call us, because the show is starting now. Welcome, everyone. Today is May 10th, 2026, and we do want to give a special message for Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, as we truly appreciate all of you and everything that you do. I am your host today, Dr. Ben, and joining me today is T, or as they're more famously known, Robotgoat. How are you doing today?
Hi, I am doing great today. I'm so happy to be here. This is my first time on Talk Heathen, so I'm ready to have a great time.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Your episode on Truth Wanted was pretty incredible. You did some really good discussions on there. So happy to have you over here today. And yes, this is a live call-in show, and we have open lines right now, so you can give us a call at 512-991-9242, or you can use your computer at tiny.cc/callth. And we are streaming today, so we have the horizontal view on YouTube, we have the vertical view on YouTube, or the mobile view on YouTube, and we also have TikTok, which has gone live. So if you want to get on the show via TikTok, that is also an option. Just make sure before you do that you must be 18 years of age or older in order to be invited on that side. But whichever way you'd like to come talk to us, we want to speak to you. We're happy to talk about cosmology, secular humanism, religion, atheistic morality, philosophy, science, all of that stuff. And today we've got kind of a special fun topic we're going to get into, which is the top misinformation by religion. So if you want to tell us what you think is the worst of the worst, like if you don't like faith healing, or if you don't like young earth creationism, or if you want to tell us why we should believe in those things, we really want to talk to you. So please join us on the show. We have open lines available. But before we get into everything, just want to share that Talk Heathen is a production of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And there are many people behind the scenes helping us have a great time on this show. So let's go to the crew cam. Thank you, everybody in the crew. We've got video and audio people, moderators, stamps and notes and stamps, and the call screeners. And if you want to see yourself on this lovely crew cam, you can join us. Or if you want to be a guest on the shows, or if you want to be a host on the shows, we're always looking for volunteers. So email volunteer@atheist-community.org to get involved in all of that. And while we are waiting for our kind of TikTokers to see that we have gone live, or people to get their calls in, would you like to share with our audience kind of who you are, what you do, and all that stuff, Robotgoat?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am T, aka Robotgoat. I am a streamer primarily on TikTok, but I've also been dabbling in cross streaming to YouTube. I do debates about religion, about science and science denial, because my educational background is in biology. I have a bachelor's in biological science. I myself am a former Christian and former young earth creationist. Who was raised on apologetics. And so now I try to help people who might be going through their own deconstruction to feel less alone compared to how I felt going through mine. And I try to do it with a little bit of humor, a little tee-hee ha-ha along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we love to have more people in this community doing this work, and especially over on TikTok, where a lot of this is growing. So super excited to have you on today. Is there any kind of part of your deconstruction story or journey that you want to share with the audience? Like any particular pieces of information that were convincing to you or weren't convincing to you?
Ooh, it's interesting for me because even going into college and even beginning to study biology, still did not really believe in evolution. I had been taught this false distinction between like micro and macro evolution, and that like we have seen small changes, but no changes in kinds. Um, for me, getting a better understanding of how heritability works was a huge game changer, because I kind of had the idea that like people inherit things from their parents, but that's about the extent that I had been taught, even up until like the end of high school. We did, believe it or not, my small town Alabama Christian school did not have the best science department. In fact, they built a science building and didn't put the science classes in there, but did put the Bible classes in there. So for me, learning more about heritability and the evidence for evolution that we have in the fossil record kind of just caused me to reconsider everything I'd been told about the age of the Earth. Also getting to do like some radiometric dating for myself, to prove that it wasn't just a sham. It wasn't the enemy trying to convince me that dinosaurs weren't around when humans were. That was a big eye-opener for me. And to be frank, becoming better at critical thinking. And that's not to say that like Christians don't think critically or young earth creationists don't think critically, but it's not really a valued skill in Christian environments. Growing up in a very conservative, very Christian environment like I did, there was really only one worldview that was presented, and you weren't really supposed to like think too hard about it. You weren't supposed to question it. You weren't supposed to have any issues with the story that you've been told. You're supposed to accept it. So learning to think critically and kind of examine evidence for things and take into account the reliability of sources was another one. But that's just me rambling for way too long.
You know, I had a very similar experience because my bachelor's was also in biology, and I went through that degree as a Christian, and I saw myself, the more classes I took and the more I allowed myself to understand it, the more I shifted from being, I was a young earth creationist, and then I ended up changing and saying, you know, maybe I do believe in evolution, but I'm still a theist. And kind of chipping away at those different pieces was definitely an experience that I had as well. So I know last week I was talking about how in some of those bio labs, like even early on, you start engaging with how does heritability work? How do genetics work? And talking to Christians on this show or on other shows, that we actually cause evolution in those classes. Like when you do a fruit fly lab and you're changing the frequency of different eye colors, that is evolution. You're causing that to happen. Micro labs are another place where evolution is done in the classroom. So when Christians say evolution isn't real or it's not real because we don't observe it, we are actively observing it, and even on those kind of bigger timescales, just accelerated in those populations of bacteria. So have you had any discussions with people about that, and what arguments do you usually lean on when someone says that we don't have evidence of evolution?
Yeah, fun little side tangent or anecdote. I remember talking about doing CRISPR with someone who was like an evolution denier, and they fully denounced it as witchcraft. They said like that you were trying to play God, and that was some like witchcraft stuff. That was some demon stuff. One of my favorite things to talk about in the context of evolution, just a quick like, maybe this will demonstrate it, is we can tell things are related when they share DNA. We share DNA with every form of life on Earth. So to some extent, we are related to every form of life on Earth. And sometimes you get the, okay, well, common design, common designer. But that's not really well represented in like the phylogeny that we see. We have such extensively constructed phylogenetic trees that show us, okay, here's why this DNA differs slightly in this way. Like, this is how much we share with certain ancestors and certain other organisms. And it creates like such this detailed, interwoven tree of relationships. So to just be like, oh, well, it's because if you were gonna make like a car, you would make the wheels circles, wouldn't you? It feels like you're really oversimplifying it, you know?
Definitely. And with that, I think let's bring up our backup host for the week, Jamie, as I bet he's got some thoughts on these discussions too. And I've got a fun activity for us to do today that I'm pretty excited about. So we've been talking a bit about misinformation that we've learned from religion, and all religions have some variety of misinformation that they present. And a lot of people are indoctrinated with those things from a pretty young age. But I wanted to do a little activity where we build a rank list of the top 10 worst offenders for misinformation from religion. And so we can kind of go back and forth and share one that we think should be on the list, and then we can debate about where it should go as far as is it worse than or less bad than some of these other ones. But if you're in the audience, even if you are an atheist in the audience and have really strong thoughts on this or want to give your perspective, give us a call. We can get you on the show and talk about what you think should go on the list and why. Or if you're a believer and you want to tell us that we should not be making this list because you can defend any of these positions, we'd love to talk with you about that too. So, and if you want to send super chats, that is a great way to support the show. If you send a super chat with a suggestion for the list, then we can also add that. So we'd love to hear all of your thoughts. But I guess let's start with Robotgoat. Is there something that you think absolutely has to go on this list?
One that I already kind of briefly talked about. My vote's going to be for young Earth creationism. Yeah,
All right.
just what's one of my top ones that I hear so often, that the Earth is between 6,000 and 10,000 years old, and every bit of evidence that we have otherwise is some sort of lie.
Yeah. We were sort of talking a little bit about this in the green room beforehand, and the evidence that against young Earth creationism is hilarious. I mean, it's like you'd have to suspend the laws of physics to make it work, because just the mere existence of like radioactive decay and heavy elements means that if the Earth was 6,000 years old, it would have boiled by now. So it's quite funny. For me, I'm going to be a little bit targeted in my first pick for the list, in that there are certain denominations, most specifically the Jehovah's Witnesses, who believe that blood transfusion is a sin and therefore deny it on religious grounds, and believe that it shouldn't be done. And oh boy, does that make a lot of medicine, very essential life-saving medicine, considerably more difficult, if not impossible, to properly administer.
So for that one, are we listing that as the blood transfusion denial, or are we going to lump that in with faith healing?
Well, I think
or denial of...
Yeah, denial of
Okay.
medicine on religious grounds is a good idea, which I think is a bit different than faith healing, because it's not that they're saying that it will heal you. It's more that I'm going to deny you this particular type of healing because it goes against what I believe God wants for you. And I've seen the harms of that firsthand, and it ain't great.
Yeah, and especially when there are children involved in that decision. It's one thing, and it's definitely not appropriate for adults to be telling adults what they should and should not do with their bodies on a religious standpoint. Like, if you are not licensed or qualified to be giving that kind of advice, you should not be giving that kind of advice. But it's bad enough when you have adults who legally can consent to refuse medical treatment. That's one thing. But if you have a child that cannot consent to the denial of healthcare, that is a big issue. So absolutely, I think that belongs on the list.
Mm. So,
And what would be your top choice, Ben?
I think I'm going to add faith healing as mine then for that one. So obviously, The opener for this week was about faith healing, and it got me thinking about a lot of different things, because I'm kind of in the works of my own little video essay about different healing miracles of Jesus, including resurrection miracles of Jesus, and just thinking about what actually, like, what does the Bible say about these things, and what would physiologically have to happen in order for that to be true. And it's pretty astoundingly impossible. But thinking about examples where faith healers have fixed the broken bone of someone in the congregation, like during the service, or resurrected somebody during the service. Right. And it's things that this could not happen in that time frame. And if you think about this interesting, like, dichotomy of ways that God works, like, simultaneously, Christians want to claim that God works in mysterious ways and it's all this magic that cannot be seen because God works outside of space and time, and so it doesn't actually have to interact with reality for reality to change. But then we'll also say that God controls the things that are natural. He made the natural processes. So why would, and also that these natural processes are evidence that God is real, because only a God could plan something like that out. So why then, why is the normal, like, bone healing pathway months long of a process to happen, when Jesus could just do it instantaneously? Like, if that was the easiest way all along, why would you make a 5-year-old suffer with a broken bone for a while it heals, and risk it not healing properly, when you could just do it instantly? Like, which of these, like, you can't have both of these at the same time. And it's,
to be fair, do doctors often try spitting on a guy?
You know, I've never tried that, so you make a good point.
You haven't really. Maybe that is the fastest way to heal someone, and you just lack faith, so you've never tried just spitting on someone, seeing if it heals him.
If my optometrist was going to try and rub spit mud into my eyes, I would have words, most of them only 4 letters long. So
But what if it worked, right?
There's mud in your eye, but
that's a great concept. Just if it doesn't work, you don't have enough faith, and that's the reason why.
I've had that pointed at me, because the standing joke, it was actually a challenge we laid down in one of the early shows I was in, that, hey, if you can pray and heal Jamie's eyes, we'll pay you $10,000. We haven't had to pay anyone $10,000. But it's interesting when you say worst, like a top 10 worst list of scientific misinformation from religion, because there's different definitions of worst, like what's most harmful, what's least defensible, or what's most widely believed misinformation. These are all different things, I think, because there's things like the firmament and the waters above, which are harmless-ish but completely indefensible and silly. Like, there's an actual dome over the planet and there's water up there, and I'm like, no, that's not a thing.
But have you considered it's blue?
Checkmate, atheists.
Listen, I'm just here, saying some things that maybe some people are too afraid to say. We should be spitting on people and the sky is blue. Is that so controversial?
Thanks, presidential name redacted. Anyway,
so I did see in the live chat somebody had suggested the Shroud of Turin to go on this list. What do y'all think about that one?
Big old forgery, but one I hear a lot still that people think is real. And that always astounds me.
One of the funniest things about a lot of the stuff around Jesus as a figure, it's one of the reasons I don't hold the mythicist position, because I don't think it's necessary. Because it's like, let's say that the Shroud of Turin was a burial shroud, and it isn't, and it was from the correct time period, it isn't. But even if it was, that still doesn't prove that you've just got an old burial shroud. It doesn't prove that it was for Jesus. And if you could prove it was for a guy called Jesus, that also doesn't prove that he could turn water into wine or walk on water or heal the sick. It just proves that a guy called Jesus died around about this long ago in this area, you know.
Yeah.
It's just,
I've heard it said it's better evidence that Jesus didn't resurrect than that he did. Because I mean, if it's a cloth of a dead guy, that does kind of seem like maybe he didn't get back up. But there's so many inconsistencies. There's the fact that it was caught out as a forgery from the beginning. There's the fact that the method used to weave it together wasn't around the time that it was supposedly from. There's so many ways to point this out, but people just want to believe so badly, and they hear it from their pastors that it's real, and they don't look into it.
yeah, and that's one of the most awful things about it. When you say people want to believe so badly, I can understand why. I want to give empathy to people who believe and want to believe, because especially when it comes to things like sickness, things that feel so out of control and can be so harmful and so scary, you want to believe that this is a solution, that there's something that you can do, some way to tip the scales in your favor, like prayer. Like I'll pray for you, or I will, you know, God's on my side. I'll get through this because I've got God on my side. I hear that daily in my job. And like, I don't want to take that person's hope away, but I know, for all the evidence I have, it's a false hope. Like if it brings you comfort, I'm not going to try and rip that away from you. But everyone, when they get desperate, is susceptible to irrational thinking, and that's one of the things that really angers me about things like faith healing, is that these charlatans prey on that, like your Peter Popovs and all that kind of thing. Just. You know, it's like this cold, hard-edged rage I have against these people. Where like, how dare you? How dare you? I even feel bad for Christians. Like, how dare you besmirch something that is relatively benign in some people, that brings them hope and comfort, and turn it into a scam? Ugh. Yes, my goat.
Yeah, especially the faith healers who, you know, like the ones you mentioned, that have like people queuing them up in earpieces, telling them, you know, who is vulnerable, who is more likely to believe what they're trying to sell. That it's a special kind of disgusting to prey on people's hope and people's faith. And that, I think that's another problem with like the prosperity gospel in general too. The idea that like whatever you sow, you will reap. However many times fold, depending on how much your pastor wants you to donate. It's a disgusting thing to push, and it's so normalized that I look back and I think of times where I witnessed it in church and just didn't even realize it.
There's another one for the list. I think Ben might roll his eyes so hard they'll fall out of his head, but God made he man and woman. It's like,
yes.
No.
Yes. Biblical gender. Yes, that definitely goes on the list, which, I mean, we can go into all of the reasons why that's problematic. Of course, it's used to invalidate trans people, which the Bible really never says anything about trans people. It doesn't say that God created cis men and cis women. Just says that God created men and women, which, I mean, if you just take that as a statement at face value, like, okay, cool, that only says something about two groups of people. It doesn't say about anything else. It doesn't say there aren't other types of people. It just says that there are these two, which I would agree with that statement. I would agree that men exist and women exist. And I also would agree that non-binary people exist, and agender people exist, and a variety of people exist. Intersex people exist.
And even if you want to make the completely inaccurate supposition that gender and sex are synonymous, they aren't. You're still inaccurate, because there's things like Swyer syndrome, De La Chapelle syndrome, and intersex people. It's like, yeah, no, it's a spectrum, baby.
I like the way you said that.
Yeah. Oh, here you go, Ben. You're a doctor. Pop quiz hotshot. Where is sperm stored?
The spine.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you're a
Yeah,
Muslim.
the spine. If you're Muslim. Yeah.
It's like the pee is stored in the balls meme, but take it to an extreme.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot of scientific information that is incorrect in multiple versions of religious texts. And it's funny when people will kind of take those statements out of context and then say, oh, well, that actually means this thing that we know is true. It's like when people talk about like reflexology and they say, oh, well, the meridians are just a different word for the nervous system. Like, well, no, because conceptually they're different things. The way that Chinese medicine describes the meridians was not at all the same mechanism that we know about the nervous system. So I would be willing to accept that that is an early hypothesis. And sure, back then, that's the best that we could do. Maybe they saw some correlations with, okay, if you mess with this particular area that happens to contain this nerve bundle, then you may see effects in this way. And then they extrapolated that out and came up with the whole reflexology system. Like, giving them the benefit of the doubt, I think that they did the best that they could at that time. The problem is now we take that information and equate that to something that is up to date, and those aren't at all the same thing. I think we can both respect what ancient peoples did and came up with to kind of set foundations for what we know now, while also suggesting that not everything they said is true. Like, it's when people, similarly, when people try to claim that we shouldn't listen to anything that Darwin said because he got some things wrong, or we shouldn't
And he was racist.
accept genetics because they got some things wrong. Like, they're always going to get some things wrong, but that doesn't mean that, like, the foundation isn't applicable in some way, but it also doesn't mean that we're going to take everything that they said verbatim and never change it. That's a big difference in the thought process between skeptics versus religious people. The fact that we can change our perspective based on what we find to be true, instead of having to rewrite the conclusion based on the hypothesis needing to be true.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. I don't want to kink shame anyone, but there's much easier ways to get your nose close to them cheesy grippers than making up an entire pseudoscience. Just pay someone. It's fine.
But hey, if you can make up an entire pseudoscience for free, then you're going to save some money.
So I suppose that makes economic sense.
I've got a small one. This is just something that I was told growing up, was that men had fewer ribs than women because Eve was made from the rib of Adam.
I don't even
That-
know if it's true that men have less. Is that true, Ben?
It's
Men
not
have less-
true.
Okay,
No.
cool.
No. But I was told that, and it's common for adults in the church to believe this.
Which is wild because you can count them. You can
They're
go
so
on your
easy
own
to-
body and you
Yeah.
can count, you can point to where they are, you can feel where they are, and you can count them. And you could count yours and you could count somebody else's.
Yeah.
And you could find out that you have the same ones. Or even you could get an x-ray and see that you have the same number. That's easily debunkable, and yet
It's
people
so-
still believe it.
I know. And like as a kid, yeah, sure, I believed it because I was like 6. But for people who are grown adults, oh,
Yeah, there's the scientific impossibility of many biblical or any kind of religious stories. It doesn't necessarily have to be just the Bible. You know, you've got the global flood, not possible through physics. Splitting
Yeah.
the moon, not possible through physics. We'd kind of notice that. Man, the chaos that splitting the moon would cause. Oh my god.
yeah, I'm pretty unobservant. I probably wouldn't know. Has the moon been split?
I mean, I don't think so. I haven't heard anything about it, but I've only been alive for a certain amount of time. But I mean, we did recently get to see parts of the moon that humans haven't seen before, which is
Oh,
super
that was CGI.
cool. Yeah. This is a little bit off topic, but I don't know if y'all saw there. I don't know who it was. Somebody posted like one of the very famous like flat Earth believers posted a picture from, I believe, from the Artemis 2 expedition, and it was saying, well, they're this high up and we still don't see a curve on the picture. Meanwhile, in the picture, there was a curve.
Oh boy!
It's like you're showing the exact evidence that debunks your claim, saying that it supports your claim. Like, do you not see the angle of the horizon? But no.
There's always
Look.
an excuse. Oh, it's lens fisheye. Oh, this is.
Yeah, if people aren't going to count their own ribs, can we really expect them to do any sort of effort to get to the truth?
Yeah, I mean, again, other impossibilities in faith. The mere concept of transubstantiation, like this literally becomes flesh and blood when you eat it, and I'm like, has anyone done a DNA analysis on that? Because that'd be wild if you could prove that.
Well, there have been some instances of fake ones. Like there was one in Buenos Aires in the 90s where they did send a piece of tissue to a doctor who examined it and determined that it was cardiac tissue. He said that it had damage consistent with a myocardial infarction. So basically they think Jesus had a heart attack. But there's no like chain of possession for the tissue sample. There's no like documentation that, you know, this is actually where they got it from. Like people witnessed it change from the bread into the tissue and it went straight to the doctor. So more than likely they had a piece of a guy's heart and they're like, hey, watch this.
And the whole anytime you put any of these things under actually controlled scientific scrutiny, you know, it falls apart. I mean, one of the big ones for me that gets me was the Templeton Institute mass prayer study, where you know, just like, no, it's just the same as flipping a coin. It makes no difference to medical outcomes whether you pray for them or not, and in fact can, if they know that you're praying for them, have some negative corollary effects on medical outcomes. And it's like, yeah, and you present that to believers and they're like, well, of course that, because God is not to be tested. God is not, you know, that's not faith. You got to be, and again, it's always goalpost shifting. It's always, you know, some excuse. And if you have any better reasoning or any rebuttals to this, please do call us. I'd rather have a caller talking than me to these two wonderful and very intelligent people. You
don't want to talk to us?
I like talking to you, but I think that maybe better conversations to be had with people who aren't going to be in the backslapping Bonarmory brigade. Ooh, alliteration.
We do have one in the screening room right now. So we'll give them a few more minutes. What's another one that you all think should be up on the list?
We kind of already touched on flat Earth, but that's like an obvious one. I love people who deny gravity specifically, who just say it's density, and that have no further explanation beyond that. That's one I just find very, very funny.
Oh yeah, it's the man. A lot of the flat Earth was actually my first vector into sort of pro-am online skeptic talk. Went from anti-vaccine to flat Earth to anti-religion. And the thing is that people use religion as a justification for these anti-science things. Like, I don't want to take vaccines because of my religion. And I'm like, where in your holy book does it tell you that you shouldn't have vaccines, or the vaccines aren't safe? That's not part of anyone's religious belief, because when these books were written, they didn't even know what germs were. Like, they thought it was humors or demons.
Bad smells.
Yeah. Oh man, the fact that there is still continuing belief that quite obvious things like grand mal seizures or mental health issues are demon possessions. And I'm like, no, it's epilepsy, you moron.
Right. And this idea that the healing miracles in the Bible were truly miracles when they didn't have any knowledge of the processes behind it. So like even a lot of the information that we don't get for those certain cases, like it's difficult to make determinations about what actually happened. but it's like with Lazarus, it says that he was ill from something. We don't know what he was ill from. It just says that he died from illness. So how do we kind of figure out what mechanism that was and like what actually happened? If they didn't know what infection was, then of course, if it was something that could have remitted, or if he went into a coma and then came out of it or something, assuming that the story is somewhat accurate, we don't really have a way to say that they would have expected that outcome. So maybe it was a miraculous outcome for them, and maybe it wouldn't have been for us now. So,
Yeah.
we do have a caller in the queue, so we're gonna say goodbye to Jamie for a little bit, and
One more
we're gonna
backslap
talk
for the
with
road.
we're gonna talk with Luke. Pronouns are he, him, from Florida. Sounds like. Let's talk about.
Hello, how you guys doing today?
Hey, Luke, how are you doing?
Hey.
You were live on Talk Heathen. What would you like to talk about?
So basically, I would love to become a part of the atheist experience. I want to share a couple of my arguments today to see if you guys think it's good.
Okay,
Well,
go for it.
Different show, but
So,
I'll accept you anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, Talk Heathen. You guys are Talk Heathen. This is the same thing. I watch both shows. How could God's words bring things into existence? You know, like he said, it says in the Bible, he phrased words together, like put words together and it brought things into existence. Like, how is that even possible? You have to really think about it. How could words make things appear from nothing? Like, we know there's a naturalistic process that created everything. Evolution has been proven. And so how could you still think that a magical being spoke words and brought things into existence from nothing? Like, that makes no sense at all. And that's the first thing you have to break down.
So Luke, I appreciate the clear, like, undercover thing you're trying to do right now, because atheists don't say that evolution created everything, and it's very clear by the sarcasm in your tone that you do believe that God spoke everything into existence. So I would say it's going to be more difficult for you to explain how God speaking made everything start to exist, compared to, like, the actual evidence we have of the age of the Earth and the development of life on Earth. But again, evolution is not anything about the origin of life or the universe. It is only how life has changed since it's been on Earth.
Okay, yeah. Oh, okay. But it has been proven that this Earth and the universe could be created without a God, though, right? I mean, that has been proven.
Using the term created is presupposing creation.
No,
right?
Not that there's a God that created it. But it's proven that this Earth could exist without a God, and that's a big thing to really break it down for Christians. You know what I mean? You gotta explain to them first. Like, no, we know the Earth could be created without a God. We already know that, and it's bad to think that a God did it still, because obviously, how could a God's words bring things into existence? You have to break down how illogical their religion is. Like, obviously, words can't bring things into existence. And then you got to explain to them evolution, how it's already been proven that everything could exist without a God. You know what I mean? Is that a good argument, you would say?
Yeah, I think it's tough to take that position. Like, I know what position you're trying to take. You're trying to, it sounds like, am I correct? Are you an atheist calling in?
Yes, I'm an atheist calling in, yes.
Okay, so you're trying to debunk the point that people think that God said words and spoke everything into existence. I think that your point is correct. I think that some of the nuances in the speech may be helpful in making your point. And I think one way to address this is to kind of get them into answering some questions. And I think one of my favorite ways of, this isn't exactly the same point, but kind of adjacent, this idea that God somehow intervenes magically. God is outside of time and space and is somehow just doing magical things to bring everything into existence. So there comes a point where you have to address, what is the difference between something that is undetectable and can just do things that don't actually impact natural processes versus something that just doesn't exist? So, like, how do we bridge the gap from all of this stuff is in existence? We have evidence that there is a natural cause or multiple natural causes for these things to be in existence. how do we bridge that to now needing a God that is outside of space and time? And if there's a God outside of space and time that is speaking words, how does that affect reality? And it sounds like you're really wanting to touch on that space of by what mechanism do these words impact reality? So I think that can be a very, very nuanced conversation. And I think if a Christian is making those specific claims, I would probably prod them and say, what mechanism do you suggest for this, or what evidence of that do you think we would see? Like, if we have a universe right now, what would look different in this universe if it was words that spoke everything into it versus if it wasn't words that spoke everything?
And I think it's important to break down the fact that we're talking about a magical being speaking things into existence. You know what I mean? Like, that's not possible. That's not a reality. There's no magical, supernatural things that exist like that. And most Christians would agree with that they would understand reality in almost every other way. But they think somehow God is a part of reality when he's just as impossible as every other fairy tale. You know what I mean? And the reason why Christians hold on so strong to that belief is because they can't handle dying. They can't handle dying. You know what I mean? And that's why they have to hold on to that belief. But it's important to help them see that it's just as much of a fairy tale as every other fairy tale. And no matter how bad you don't want to die, you're going to die, and you're not going to be alive one day. You know what I mean? That's the important thing.
Yeah, I think just the approach needs to adjust a little bit, because yes, I would agree that there's minimal evidence or no evidence to suggest that God is necessary for any of this. I think I think the way that you're phrasing it almost adopts a burden of proof on our side to say that it is impossible for that thing to happen. Not saying that it's likely, but it is a more difficult position to argue, because then you have to actively disprove the things that Christians are claiming, or say that this is impossible.
I didn't know.
To which you can get into this logical trap with people where they will say, but how do you know it's impossible? Do you have, what confidence level do you have that this is 0% possible? And I can't honestly say that all these things are completely impossible, like down to a 0%. But I can say that it is more likely that we have an origin that is compatible with these more natural causes that we already see in our current understanding of the universe.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's like, even if we didn't have any understanding of evolution, though, we should still look at it as impossible. You know what I mean? Because, we now know that the world was created from naturalistic causes. And so to still think that a God spoke things into existence is just really bad. You know what I mean? That's what Christians really have to think about. They have to really think about the fact that it's not possible for something to speak something into existence.
Luke, it seems like
control bears.
I gotta say, the way you keep repeating the same phrase over and over, it definitely seems like you're trying to get us to, agree with you word for word, or to repeat what you're saying. But I think Ben explained pretty well why that's not. I'm sorry, I can't hear you when I'm speaking. But Ben explained pretty well how that's not really a strong argument, nor is it the argument that we typically make. So it's a little bit odd that you're using this language if you are an atheist caller, because it almost seems like a straw man position of atheism. Like you're trying to get us to agree with it so you can say, see, look, this is what atheists believe. That it's so ridiculous that a magic fairy being poofed the world into existence. And we're trying to have a better conversation than that here, Luke.
No, I understand. So you got to kind of make them demonstrate evidence for the religion. And if they can't, then that kind of just, falls back on them then. Because they can never demonstrate evidence. Is that what you're saying more? You got to have them demonstrate evidence rather than just saying it's impossible.
Well, no, there's just a couple different ways you can handle it. One of those is to kind of guide them into an area of, here's the gap in our knowledge, right? And this is where theists and apologists will lean on, is that we have hypotheses for how beings came into existence, or how evolution occurred to change the allele frequencies over time and give us different species. But there's a gap where we have hypotheses of how the universe came to be. Is there one universe? Is there a multiverse? All this stuff. There's a lot of thought in this field of astrophysics, cosmology, all of that. But we don't really have a great way to be sure of any of it. So religion likes to play on that gap and say, well, we don't know, therefore God, therefore insert this other thing. So playing into this gap is very difficult because it is a knowledge gap for atheists as much as it is anybody else. So how do we demonstrate that one possibility is more likely than another? Really, when we come to this point, I often say, I don't know. There are multiple hypotheses. I can say this is what the scientific community tends to believe on this at the current moment, although those hypotheses are changing over time based on the new evidence that we find. So really all I can say is, I don't know. I don't have, I don't,
It's sort of
like, it's,
yeah.
yeah. So I think getting them to give their position of, like, if they are so convinced that there is evidence for a God making it happen, then they have the burden to demonstrate that. I don't want to put myself in a position where I have a burden that I cannot demonstrate, because I think that would just put us on an equally weak footing as far as that position.
You're very right. Can I give one more argument I want to do about the morality you got too? But that's another really fun one to break down. Because they follow God because they think he's all good, but God sent 2 bears after people to maul 42 children because they made fun of a guy's bald head. Like, if someone made fun of me because I had too short of hair and I went and I stabbed them to death, then I'd be put in prison for the rest of my life. But when God murders many children because they made fun of a guy's bald head, he gets away with it. It's fine. It's all holy. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. God should be held to the same standard as us. If he does something bad, then we should look at it as bad. You know what I mean? Is that a pretty good argument against God too?
That's actually one of the more minor atrocities committed by God in the
Yeah,
Bible.
no, I mean he drowned an entire population alive too. Little babies drowning alive, crying. It gets worse than that. I mean, God drowned.
There's
babies
that.
alive. He did.
There's the slaughtering of the Amalekites. There's certain laws that he had that led to women being burned alive, that led to women being stoned if they couldn't prove that they bled on their wedding night, which doesn't always happen. He condoned chattel slavery, like the owning of people as property, being able to beat those people that are owned. There's an entire buffet of atrocities to choose from, like the world's worst Golden Corral. So just take your pick.
Yeah,
the bear one,
sure.
pretty bad.
On that.
Pretty bad. But the problem is a lot of people, Christians particularly, they will say that it's not that God does things because they're good, but things are good because God does them. So they will say that any action God takes must necessarily be good, and they will use that as a justification for these atrocities.
But there's no justification for murder, and if he does murder, then he's a bad person, and that's what people have to understand. It's either he's a good God or a bad God. Because he's committed murder and killed innocent children, he's a bad God, and there's no way around that. You can't say, oh, well, God's bigger than us, so he can do what he wants. That's not true at all. God, he still committed murder. He still committed genocide.
I mean, I would agree that the God of the Bible is immoral, and it's a great reflection that their God is a reflection of humanity, humanity's desires at that time, and what humanity valued in terms of their society
back then.
So,
yeah, I feel like they were like a lot worse back then, people, as far as society goes, and I think that God was a representation of their society for sure. That's definitely what
it was propaganda. A lot of it was like, if you think about how societies work, and even if you evaluate the pantheon that then led to Yahweh, like the specific deity that they chose to be their God was chosen as a god of war, knowing that they were going to battle these other civilizations and their gods who are kind of from this same pantheon. But a lot of it was propaganda, saying, hey, we don't want these people in the land that we want, so we're going to adopt this religious belief so that we can justify sending our people into battle and killing them. And
exactly,
so it's an example of a political propaganda from that particular time.
There's some Bible verses where it says bash babies' heads into rocks. You know what I mean? Like, it literally says that. And I'm like, I don't know how people could read that and still think that it's God doing that and that God's still good. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's just because people have such a strong fear of death that they'll find any way to make themselves still believe in their belief. You know, I think that's what it is. But if you
I think there's a few reasons why people adopt these sets of beliefs. I would agree that fear of death is one of them. I would also say that there are people who honestly believe some of these things are okay. And they use this book to justify those decisions. This idea that certain humans are more deserving of life than other ones, that is a common belief that people actually do hold. And it's just not very socially acceptable for them to say that out loud to other people. So they use their book to do the heavy lifting for them. And we can have the discussion of how much of that is indoctrination or how much of that is their own honest opinions of the world. But I would agree that there are a lot of moral problems with following the God of the Bible. But when we're having discussions about this with Christians, I think if we're going to take a discussion approach, a lot of times we want to get in there and start telling people, yeah, your God is immoral, and start yelling at each other, which I think for some people need to hear it that way. Some people are out there actively harming people, and they need a bit more harsh of a conversation. But other people just genuinely have not thought about these ethical stances before. They haven't read their book in that much detail, or they read it. I don't know if you saw the show last week, but Sarah made a really good point that a lot of the Bible study, like the Bible in a year Bible studies, will separate out verses across different books to be read in a different order, so that you're not reading the book cover to cover. You're not seeing the inconsistencies, and you're not seeing some of those more horrible things that you might think about because it's put in a different context. So I think a lot of people are wanting to be, I think a lot of people want to be good people, and sitting them down and saying, hey, do you think that this action in the Bible is good? And figuring out what their perspective is on it. Because I think also not every Christian says that everything in the Bible is good. There have been people I've talked to that have said, yeah, no, the stuff in the Old Testament is bad, but we've changed our views on that, and now we don't do that anymore. And so I think it's important not to straw man people about their position and actually engage with them. Like, do you think that this action is ethical because God did it, or do you think that it is unethical? And having a discussion issue by issue instead of kind of giving into that impulse to just start yelling at people that their God is unethical, even though I would agree he is unethical and immoral.
Yeah.
But when we have a discussion, I think we need to be,
it'd be like,
we need to engage a bit better with
it's not
them.
ethical if a God did it. Is that a pretty good one? It's not ethical if a man, like if a man, like let's say there's a dictator and he killed 42 kids because they made fun of one of his commanders, then he'd be looked at as a monster. But when God does it, he's not looked at as a monster. He's looked at as a holy God, and that doesn't make any sense. So you got to kind of like put it into perspective for them too, to help them understand how unethical it really is, his actions.
Yeah, I have used a similar demonstration to that sometimes. I bring up things that God did in the Bible, and I'm like, instead of saying that God did this thing, I'm going to say that this thing was done by a guy named Dave.
Exactly.
Completely pulled that name out of my rear. But I'll be like, okay, so imagine if you had a friend named Dave, and Dave was like, yeah, so, my pastor's daughter, she had sex before marriage, so I set her on fire. You'd be like, wow, Dave, you're an asshole.
Well,
that's kind of
a
good, it's a fun little standard to use. The problem is, and what you'll hear a lot of times as a counter is Christians will say something along the lines of like, well, his ways are higher than ours. So while we say something might be, atrocious for a human to do, God gets a pass because he knows all, he is all powerful, he is our creator. What is the pot supposed to say to the potter? I think that's a pretty weak argument because obviously we don't let parents do whatever they want to their children, so why would we let a creator do whatever they want to their creation? But you will get some pushback on that, just like, oh, well, it's different for God because he big guy.
But then you could tell them, well, it doesn't matter what position he's in. It doesn't matter how powerful he is. We know murder's wrong. So we should obviously know if God did murder, then he's wrong and he's evil. You know what I mean? Kind of bring back down logic. Don't let them escape with that. You know what I mean? Gotta.
Yeah.
Well, Luke, I think we've had a good conversation here. If you want some more information, AXP is going to be on this afternoon as well. We do have other people trying to get on, so I think. Do you have anything you want to leave us with?
Either of you guys could give me like a recommendation for getting on the show, I would love to. I love to learn from you guys. Like, I'm really passionate about debating. So if you guys could give me a recommendation, that'd be awesome. But I love talking to you guys today. I think you guys are very smart, so that was really fun.
Yeah, try calling into AXP, and if they've got room on their lines, you can see about getting on. I don't have any pull to tell them who to take and who not to take, but you can just call the number probably at the beginning of the show, and then see if they've got spots.
So if I call them at the beginning of the show before it starts, then they might let me become a host for like the show temporarily.
Oh no, like be a caller. I'm saying you could call into the show and try out your arguments on them and get some feedback there. I think that would be a good place to go.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was asking about becoming like a host. Is there any way to do that, or is that not something that's even possible?
You can go to the volunteer, or we have a link if you're interested, volunteer at atheist-community.org. Anybody can go to that link and see how to become a volunteer. If you're interested in that.
What was the link again? What was the link again?
Volunteer at atheist-community.org. And with that, I'm going to let you go, and you can go explore the website on your own. But thank you for calling in. Have a great day.
All right. That was a little bit of a plot twist at the end there.
Yeah.
So long, Talk Heathen. Welcome to the ACA casting couch.
Yes. And we do have a TikTok request wanting to jump in. I don't see their name information in the chat, so if the crew can let me know who we're speaking to. Oh, Billythesilly 27 from TikTok. Let's take them.
Hey, I don't see them on the list, so someone on the production is going to have to let them in.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, Billythesilly 27. Real quick before we get started, I just want to verify that you are 18 years or older. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Born in 93.
Awesome. Perfect. So what would you like to talk about today?
Is this for ops only, or because I don't want to take up too much of your time? I'm an atheist.
Yeah, we're taking any calls today, so happy to speak with you.
But auditions are the next room over.
Yeah. What's your topic today?
I kind of wanted to go off of something that last guest said, because I think, in a way, I think a lot of like people who, read the Bible or go to church, I think the reason why they don't know these things is not because of, I think a lot of it comes down to them not actually reading the Bible and understanding it. Like, they go to church, they listen to what their pastor says, all fun and games, like it's all great, you have a community. And then whenever they hear the opposition, they hear of these atrocities, and it's almost like a shock to their foundational belief. So I don't think a lot of them necessarily in their hearts defend it, but when presented that, now it's out of Pandora's box. You have to say, yes, I'm going to accept and defend this God who committed all these atrocities, even though my own moral beliefs don't believe it. And because that shakes everything up, it's that faith crisis that brings them down,
Yeah, and Ben kind of brought up that point earlier about the devotionals to kind of have you skip around. Pastors, especially in evangelical churches, tend to do a very similar thing, where they will be very, very selective about which verses they read, even out of a particular story. And for example, I got a little bit morbidly curious. I decided to go and watch some of the sermons by the current pastor at the church I grew up in. And he was giving a talk on 2 Samuel chapter 12, which is the
Oh man,
the
the
story
infamous one.
it's after David has, taken Bathsheba and had her husband killed at war. And this pastor decided to make this a story about the wonderful forgiveness that God has for all of us if we come to him and ask for forgiveness, because God
quite the
chose
pivot.
to spare David's life, completely leaving out the whole, striking a baby with fatal illness and having his wives, brutally, I don't know what words I can say, on a rooftop. So it was just very interesting to see the way that he turned this story into just like this nice feel good, like, oh well, David came to God and he begged for forgiveness, and because his begging was pure and his intentions were pure, God spared his life even though his sins were worthy of death. So I think a lot of times it's that like careful verse selection to create a certain rendition of a story that's not necessarily the most accurate to scripture, but might be, the most warm and fuzzy for the congregation to take home.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that, because I think a lot of religion, it relies heavily on authority. So they want to be told what to believe instead of doing the thinking for themselves. And sometimes they don't even know that they can think for themselves. So it's almost like, oh well, but that's not what my pastor or bishop said. It's almost like you have to take a look at it and read it and go, hold the fuck on, like that's completely immoral. Like, why would he think that that's okay to just allow these women to be raped later on as part of the reconciliation for his sin? So I just because I have a lot of, so I'm a former Mormon, and I have a lot of good relatives and friends who are still practicing the faith. And I personally believe it's like, as long as like you're not doing anything like bad or whatever, I'm not going to try and just like dismantle your religion for fun or anything like that. But if you have questions, or if you're going to try and shove it down somebody's throat, that's when I come over and say, you do realize like there are some super fucked up things. And
Yeah.
if you're wanting to spread this religion, you have to accept these atrocities in the name of your God are what they are. Like, you can't deny it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like we were talking about before, pastors definitely do have a way of picking the verses they want to share and not sharing the ones they don't. It's interesting how very rarely does Song of Solomon become a sermon that people are doing in church.
Right.
A lot of conveniently left out passages help me kind of start getting out, because I did decide to do like reading the Bible cover to cover, and I didn't do one of those studies that separates everything out, and I just did cover to cover. And yikes, there is so much in there that conveniently pastors never made sermons on, or if they did, it was just like a slight excuse of that thing before talking about, well, Jesus paid the price, and so therefore it's the new covenant, and they're ignoring the fact that the old covenant wasn't wiped away. Jesus came to fulfill the covenant, and that the law was not abolished. A lot of the changes in tradition were from Paul, not from Jesus. So I think if people actually spent more time reading their Bible instead of just listening to their pastors, they'd maybe have some different thoughts or coming to terms with things that we don't really speak about as much. But even one that got to me in the Bible was I was in a women's Bible study because I'm trans. So I was sitting in there, and we get to a passage about women should be quiet and not speak in church. And I came from a very Western evangelical congregation where, sure, there's only a male pastor, but women had other roles in the church, or like people did speak in church, like people would share their testimonies in church. And so coming from a culture where women speaking in public is very normalized, and then coming across this passage, and I actually came across this passage in a Bible study in India when I was on a mission trip. So that was a very interesting time where I thought to myself, wait, they have this passage, like we're just supposed to be quiet. So should I just not even, I'm not even supposed to be here because we're not supposed to be speaking in a church. But then later on, there's a contradiction that says that women should be speaking. So it doesn't really make sense, but for me, it took actually coming across those passages to recognize them as problematic. But I'm curious if there's anything taught like in seminary about how to conveniently navigate around some more controversial passages.
Yeah, those are some great points. I also wanted to I can't remember who was it, Martin Luther, who wanted to publish the Bible from the Catholic Church, and he was heavily fought over for not being able to publish the Bible, if I'm remembering correctly.
I don't know exactly. I'd have to look into that.
Because I was almost going to say history kind of tends to repeat itself, because obviously there was some really damning passages for the authority of religion in general that could have been taken, out of context. So I think they tried to prevent a lot of the Bible from being published. And I think we can kind of see a parallel today of just listen to only what the pastor says because they hold the truth. They encourage you to read the Bible, but it's almost but don't believe in your own thoughts. Believe in what we tell you in a way. So it's almost in a way, a parallel of history that I look at. Anyway, I'm sorry, I do got to go. It's Mother's Day, and I'm trying to make something special for my wife, but I do appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Aww,
Yeah, thank you for your call. Good to have you on.
Thanks.
All right.
Well, that was rather pleasant.
Yeah, that was a good call. Let's bring Jamie back up, if we could.
Yeah.
So we do have open lines for people in the chat if you'd like to tell us your thoughts about religion, or if you want to tell us what we should put on our rank list that we're still building. But we are going to do a pretty cool announcement, and I did want Jamie up here for this. But we have a cool event coming up next weekend. We're going to have a fundraiser, a 24-hour live stream fundraiser on May 16th at 6 p.m. There's going to be a lot of different content creators in the community and hosts that you are familiar with, hopefully, doing different segments of this fundraiser. So I'm going to let, we got Real World Jamie here, and we also got Recording Jamie. So let's hear from Recording Jamie, and then we'll hear from Real Jamie.
Jamie the Blind Lime here, and I've got some interesting news for you. On Saturday, May 16th at 6 p.m, we'll be hosting our 24-hour We Are Here live stream and fundraiser to highlight secular voices around the world. We've invited dozens of your favorite content creators like Genetically Modified Skeptic, The Antibot, Justin DZ, and more to let the world know that we are here. And we're not going anywhere. If you're here in Austin, come join us at the Free Thought Library at 1507 West Koenig Lane. Well, we'll be kicking things off in style. And if you're online, do join us on the Atheist Experience channel to check out the stream and join in the fun. So join us from wherever you are in the world, and together we can dedicate ourselves to secular humanist values wherever we are.
Awesome. Jamie, any thoughts that you'd like to communicate about this fundraiser to the audience before we take our next TikToker?
I don't know, Mike, that bloke sounds like a bit of a pretentious bollock. I didn't know if you're asking me, but no. It's going to be great fun. There's so many cool things we've got lined up. I'm going to be involved in a few segments that are going to be hopefully really funny. You may get to see me suck some limes. You may get to see me crash a truck. Not a real one.
At the same time?
Separately, although, I mean, got to keep your vitamin C up when you're when you're trucking. And there's
Always saying that.
one of the things I will say about this fundraiser is that one of the wonderful problems we've had is not trying to find people who want to contribute. It's, oh my goodness, so many people want to contribute and so many talented people want to like do cool things for this 24-hour live stream. We can barely fit them all in. So it's going to be chock-a-block back to front. And if you are in the Austin area, I'm going to be at the library to kick it off. And so I'll be there in the flesh. And it's going to be great.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jamie, for that wonderful announcement. And we'll see you back at the end of the show. All right, Robotgoat, we got a couple people wanting to come in. Do you have a preference on?
I'm gonna go ahead and are you going with me just inviting them up?
Yeah, go for it.
I know them as Secular Cheese. This seems like maybe it's an alt account. So we've got Secular Fromage instead.
Yes, hello, how are you?
All right,
Hi.
Secular Cheese, you are live on Talk Heathen. First and foremost, can you verify that you are over the age of 18?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. All right. What would you like to talk about?
Well, so, and Robot may understand this if, they remember me from some stuff, is I've found that I have sometimes felt a bit alienated in certain progressive spaces because I do consider myself far more immigration skeptic than I think a lot of other secular people. And part of it has to do with the fact that I do think that large-scale immigration from highly religious societies increases the religiosity of Europe and Canada, specifically where I'm from and where I live. I have seen how, Muhammad being the most common name in England, the fact that there are now explicitly Muslim parties in parts of Europe. I find that concerning in the same way that, I find Christian nationalism concerning in America. I find the Islamization of Europe concerning.
Yeah, I do remember you, and I remember why you don't typically come into my streams anymore. It's just this is all the reason you feel excluded in like more progressive or secular spaces is because that's racist propaganda.
But it's not racial. It's to do with clear.
Why did you feel the need to point out the Muhammad being the most common name thing that is used all over the place by racists? Like, why, if it's not racist, why use a massive racist dog whistle to express your opinion about it?
Well, because it reflects the demographic change that has gone on in
And where do you get that statistic from?
Oh, I think it was it not the actual UK government that published that?
You don't know?
Well, I know that it was published at one point in the Daily Mail. But, I mean, even if it isn't the case, would you not at least consider that the rise in the Islamic population in Europe is at least possibly a detrimental development?
So I want to ask, are you suggesting we restrict immigration based on religious status?
I mean, I think that there's some countries you can do that explicitly. There are others where you can't. And
do you think that do you think that that is a positive?
I think we should try to discriminate positively towards more secular people.
So do you think that only secular people should be able to move into a different country?
Discriminate positively.
Discrimination, what is it? Like we should favor, if the choice is between, so if the choice would be, inviting in a Czech versus a Russian, I would say we should let the Czech in if it's between, an Austrian.
So just on the basis of this is a problem because you are putting value on different humans over other humans based on demographic information, which I do not support by any means. You could also add other information in there that might make a difference for what someone is going to bring into a country. Like if you had Muslim doctor coming in versus somebody else. Like, do you think that, I mean, I would think that that would add favor into bringing that person in. But either way, I'm in favor of separating religion from government. It seems that you are too. But with that, I don't think that we can discriminate against other people based on their religious affiliation. And I don't think that's a fair way to evaluate, you know, the value of people, right? And I don't, I take huge issue with saying that only secularists can immigrate to a certain place and other people can't. Like, really, it's not so much their particular religious stance, it's how they apply their religion to other people. So I don't think just wearing the religious label necessarily implies what somebody is doing with that religion. I know plenty of religious people who keep their religion to themselves, and that's a position that I would fight for. I would fight for the opportunity for somebody to have the right to believe what they believe. So I think that your perspective on this goes beyond caring for human rights and actually violates some human rights.
So I would say that it's not judging them based on an immutable characteristic, right? It's about what they believe, right? So it's not.
That doesn't matter to me. That it doesn't. I don't think that that is a characteristic to discriminate based on. And something else is that we're not even just saying religious beliefs when we're talking about the Muslim community or the Jewish community, because these are cultural groups as well. So there are people, and in fact, I know Muslims who are more culturally Muslim. And in fact, I know people who are trans who are Muslim. And so I think that, especially in non-Muslim societies with a lot of Islamophobia, there's an issue with trying to put some of those cultural aspects onto the religion and say that all of those are bad things. And I don't think that, I think we need to be careful when talking about Muslims and Jews and other religious, cultural, and ethnic groups, because some of those qualities get intermixed, and then people will say, oh, well, we're just banning the Muslims, but then using that as an excuse to ban people from certain countries or from certain areas or with certain names. Because you can, even if we said that, sure, a lot of people have the name Muhammad, what does the name Muhammad say about them as a person?
Think of all the people named Christian who aren't.
Sure.
I also want to point out, I did find a source on this, looking at the BBC. This is from 2024, that says Muhammad was the top choice for baby names in 2023. However, the other top 10 for boys were Noah, Oliver, George, Leo, Arthur, Luca, Theodore, Oscar, and Henry. With almost all of those just a little bit behind Muhammad, and Muhammad is including every single variation of spelling for the name Muhammad. So you're acting as if the overwhelming majority of boys are, number one, named Muhammad, number two, automatically Muslim by being named Muhammad, and that's just not taking into account all of the statistics showing that it may be the most popular, but it is not a majority whatsoever.
Well, my argument wasn't relying necessarily on it being the largest name. My argument was that this is a demographic change that I think could be problematic.
But it's not necessarily reflective of a demographic change, because again, if it looks like there was around like 4,600 babies named Muhammad in 2023, there was around 4,300 named Noah. Of the top 10, the one with the least is Henry, which still has almost 3,000. So if you add up from 3,000 to 4,500 times the 9 other names in the top 10, you barely got 10% of them being named Muhammad.
Also, do we penalize people based on what could be problematic or after they do something that's problematic? Like, is it fair to imprison people or like revoke human rights from people because they might commit a crime.
Well, I think that we can make policy based on what is likely to occur, right? Like when you look at...
But we don't have evidence that this is likely to occur. We don't have evidence that just because somebody is Muslim that they are going to start committing crimes or that they are going to be a negative influence on society. So we can just throw that out.
Well, it's also about their legal influence, right? I have a problem with the existence of Islamic political parties, Islamic schools.
So that is a different issue. So addressing a certain group of lobbyists or people trying to pass policy is different than addressing people who are part of a demographic group. So we can separate those things out. And so, yes, and that is, again, focusing on action. So we should put our efforts in places where action is important or action is going to cause harm or reduce harm. That is separate from preemptively penalizing people based on the religion they come from, the name that they have, the demographic they come from.
And I know you've been told all this before, Cheese, because you've been told all this before on my streams, and then you continue to sound off in comment sections with like this horrible, harmful rhetoric, and then wonder why you feel ostracized in progressive spaces. It's because you hold harmful views. You've been told multiple times that you hold harmful views, and you basically just plug your ears and say la 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 la.
Well, it's because I think that there is this assumption that this is racially based when it's not. It's about what populations hold particular views. And I should also say that this isn't even specifically with Muslims. There's a way.
You don't know what populations hold particular views. You're making assumptions about them.
Well, no, because you can see in polling the number of Muslims in Europe who support various theocratic measures. And the reason why migration is with them particularly important is because there is a possibility for that to be reversed, either through deportations or limiting of migration as a way to preserve the secular.
So, I'm sorry, so you want to deport people based on their religious affiliation?
Not explicitly. That would be the...
So you want to do it without saying that because it sounds bad. So you want to do the thing, but just not call it that.
Well, there's a part of it is legality of it, right?
Right. Why is it illegal? Because it's discriminatory, and we shouldn't be doing that.
Oh, but remember, he wants to discriminate positively.
Well, should religious groups actually gain the amount of deference that we give them in terms of non-discrimination and that thing? That's, I think, another question we should have or discussion.
But again, this is not solely based on the religion. Like, yes, it's a religion, but these are also cultural groups and often ethnic groups. And so that's where this intersection becomes a bit more sticky. And so you can say that you want to ban people based on a religious label, but ultimately that's not what you're doing. That's not the consequence that's happening. So I think we're going to move on from this conversation. Thank you for joining us. If you want to come back a different week, I think we can try to revisit this. We only have a few minutes left in the show, so we do have somebody else that we'd like to get to. So thank you for joining, and we'll talk to you next time.
Would you believe that they've had some bad opinions about Jewish people in my life before?
Yeah, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised about that. So again, like the ACA, our position is the separation of religion and government. And it's not saying that religious people don't belong in the society. We just want people to have their religion to themselves and not try to make other people do the things that follow their religion. But we do advocate for equal treatment of people. And that means respecting humans as humans and not making decisions based on demographics or their name. So just want to clarify that. But let's talk with Kush. I believe wants to come up on the TikTok as well.
Yo, what's going on?
Kush, welcome.
Hey.
Real quick, can you verify that you are over the age of 18?
I'm 31, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. It's something TikTok makes us do for compliance. So I appreciate that. What would you like to talk about?
So I don't know if you have any more room for skeptics on this panel because I love these conversations. If not, that's fine. I'll drop out. But I did want to say, Dr. Ben, bro, I rock with you, bro. I seen you on the line, and you know what I'm saying. I love you, my man. So you know what I'm saying.
Thank you.
But yeah.
Yeah, we got some time. What do you want to talk about?
All right. So you guys are also atheists, I would assume.
That's correct.
All right, I'm gonna keep it short and straight to the point. So, like what, like, were you guys always atheists? Were you previously believers, or you know, like, what's going on there?
I was raised Christian, and I was Christian up until I was about 17.
Okay, what inspired your skepticism?
It was a combination of things. For one, it was just getting out of the environment of my hometown. I grew up in a very Christian little bubble. I didn't really get exposed to viewpoints outside of Christianity, and I went to a private religious school, so I was taught only religious beliefs. Like, I was practically scientifically illiterate by the time I got out of high school. And then when I went off to college, I went to a larger city and I met people with different views from my own, and I improved my critical thinking skills and my scientific literacy and started to see that, hey, some of the stuff that I was taught as if it's irrefutable truth, pretty damn refutable.
Oh, hey, 100%. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like, it was recognizing that I had a belief system that I essentially just accepted. And I didn't have anything convincing to me personally that, you know, for me to say, like, this is true. You know, my dad was a non-believer. Like he didn't believe in, you know, Christianity or any sort of religion specifically. He believed in a higher power, but he had always argued against religion. And one of the points, like, there was one question that I remember asking myself, and it was like, if I was born in a different country to a different culture, or like, you know, would I still follow the same belief systems? And chances are it probably wouldn't be the case. And that was one of the questions that was really hard for me to sweep under the rug and try to ignore. And it kind of inspired me to start asking more questions. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Fair reason
Glad
to
you
do
did
it.
that. Yeah.
Dr. Ben, though, so you've always been a non-believer, I'm assuming?
No, I came from a fundamentalist evangelical household, and my dad is actually in Christian ministry. So, not like I wasn't a full like PK, but pretty darn close.
Quick question before I roll out, though. Like, how did your families react to you guys coming out as an atheist? If you told them yet, I don't know if you guys have or not.
Oh, my family is not supportive at all of that. No.
Mine just doesn't really talk about it. It's just kind of an elephant in the room sort of thing.
Yeah. But so my family, I probably argue most of my family is somewhat supportive of it. They might not agree. There are also other family members who are just like straight up like, you're an atheist, that's ridiculous, that's insane. And it's just, you know, so, but hey, I mean, at the end of the day, you guys are standing up and you guys are inspiring a lot more people to speak out about their position, you know? So I view that as a great thing. And honestly, I love it, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? I know we're at the very tail end of the show here, but definitely if you have more questions or anything, we're live every Sunday, and there's also the Atheist Experience that's going to be on after this one, if you want to talk with them too.
Nothing else that I want to touch on, but just let you guys know, you guys are legends. I love y'all, man.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your call. We really appreciate it. Hope you have a
Sorry about that.
good rest of your Sunday and a wonderful Mother's Day. I hope you have a relationship where you can talk with your mom. I know a lot of people can't right now.
Hey, I love you guys, man. Stay up.
Yeah, thanks, Kush. Take care. All right. Well, let's bring Jamie up from the basement where we've been keeping him.
You get your crust of bread and a cup of water, Jamie.
Thoughts. So,
All right. Before I let you get into that, I do want to read the top 5 patrons of the week. So if you want to get your name on the top 5 patrons of the week, you can do that through the Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonTH. But this week we have Oops, All Singularity, Dingleberry Jackson, Kalevi Helveti, period, just a period, Casey Kickendall, and the honorable mention of Ted Dewin. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm guessing that the J is similar to like Eastern European pronunciation, but I could be wrong on that, so I apologize. But thank you to everybody who ended up on this list, and maybe you'll see your name next week. Jamie, I know you had some thoughts. You had a lot of thoughts. Take it away.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'll quickly go over the 3 calls that I just want to make quick comments on. Luke, first call. It's in, you want to be, don't take your ego out of the conversation. It did feel my Poe alarm was going off hardcore. I was kind of with you on that one, Robotgoat, T. In that, like, is this guy actually is a Christian pretending to be an atheist? Because you really don't want to be sitting on truth claims you can't back up, and don't assume that you're smarter or saner or more rational just because you don't have a belief in God and someone else does. I feel that's condescending. Second call, similar. Try and steel man your opponent's argument before trying to refute it, because that makes your argument more cohesive. And the last call was just very pleasant. Secular cheese. Just goes to show you that just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you're not an arsehole. And I know it's kind of a bit gauche to sort of fire shots when they're not here to defend themselves. And if you'd like to call back,
They're still watching.
If you'd like to call back in on a day that I'm on, and I can talk to you directly, I'd be happy to discuss the thing. One, the Daily Mail is a right-wing tabloid rag. You may as well be trusting the National Enquirer. Secondly, Muslims make up around about 6% of the UK population. They are a vast minority. Thirdly, they are just the soup du jour of the terrorism scapegoat. Yes, there have been some incidents, but back in the 80s and 90s, it was Irish Catholics that were the big boogeymen planting bombs in train stations. All religious violence is bad. All violence is bad. But to just highlight this one particular group is just scapegoating, and I'll have no truck with it. Third of all, I come from Birmingham. It's one of the most racially integrated cities in the entire UK. I've lived and worked and learned around Muslims my entire life. I may have epistemological discussions with them. I may disagree with some of their beliefs. I may find some of their practices unusual, but none of them have ever harmed me or any of mine directly. They aren't trying to take over the government. I mean, the current mayor of London is a Muslim and isn't knocking down churches and bringing up mosques. I was in Birmingham in 2004, not long ago, 2024, at a Christmas market with a pork sausage in one hand and a 2-pint stein of beer in the other, and no one jihaded me. I know that's an anecdote, but there you go. It's all so massively overblown, and I will implore you, Mr. Cheese, to keep the name of my hometown and home country out of your mouth until you know what you're talking about.
Excellent.
Said it better than I could have. Yeah, no, that was just straight up, like, that was bigotry and discrimination, point blank. Really gross to listen to, but not unexpected from that particular user.
Yeah. Well, the invitation is open for them to call back into this show or try their luck with AXP, because I can promise you they're not going to be any more favorable towards that position than we are. So good luck with that if you decide to bring it there. Any other comments about the show today? Any last thoughts you want to get off your chest?
Just that T's been an absolute gem. Hope to see much more of you. And
Thank you.
of course, Ben, consummate professional, one of my favourite people to interact with. And great show, guys.
Yeah, and Robot Goat, can you once again tell the audience who you are, where they can find you, all that jazz?
Yes. So I'm Robotgoat, aka T. I do my own streams on TikTok where my username is also Robotgoat, and I also post to YouTube. Technically, my username on YouTube is just Robotgoat with all the vowels taken out, but if you just search Robotgoat on pretty much any platform, I'll come up.
Awesome. And I think it's time to send out some love rings to everyone out there. If you don't believe, this is your community. We appreciate you being here. And if you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
Bye, everyone.
We want the truth! So watch Truth Wanted Live, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect online at tiny.cc/call-TW.